So yeah, so we're starting off with the Leeuwin Estate Art Series, Chardonnay 2012 from Margaret River. So could you tell us a little bit, please, about why you selected this particular wine and what it has to do? How does it fit into the story?
So Leeuwin Estate is actually quite a modern estate, and it was founded in the 1970s. But the actual clonal selection of the Chardonnay is absolutely fascinating. So just a brief story of Leeuwin Estate. It was established by Dennis and Trish Horgan, who are very prominent business people in Perth, but absolute visionaries. And the winery which they established, they engaged Robert Mondavi from California to help them. But in the background, what I find really interesting about Leeuwin Estate, because it's very easy to pick up the story of Leeuwin Estate, and we don't really have much time, so it's better to talk about the stuff that's really interesting about the history, and that's is the Gin clone. So this wine is based on a clone called the Gin clone that was first brought out to Australia in the 1950s, and it was first brought out as kind of virus indicator, and it came from California, from the University of Davis, California, and through other people's research, not mine, but I've just kind of been picking it up. It comes via a whole lot of imports that came in from Meursault in the 1880s or the 1890s, and were planted out in places like the Wente vineyard. And so the provenance we know is 19th century vine stock material, and I'm presumably pre-phylloxera, and brought out to Western Australia. Again, it's all on its own route, so it doesn't have it. It's not on rootstocks, and but it's had this extraordinary impact on the Margaret River, because when it was brought down there, the Horgans not only planted Chardonnay for their own vineyard, but they also subsequently allowed other vignerons to pick up the same clonal material from their vineyard. So if you're talking about Vas Felix or Cullen, Voyager Estate, I mean, you name them all, they've all got Gin clone, and it all relates back into Leeuwin Estate. So historically, Leeuwin Estate is the kind of the mother vineyard of Margaret River. I would in the Block 42 vineyard anyway, but it has a particular way of ripening in which it gets this kind of what they call hen and chicken, and in France you call it mûre d'âge, and it has the effect of concentrating the fruits, preserving the acidity, and making these wines particularly beautiful in terms of how their impact on the palate. So typically, as young wines, they have this very kind of grapefruit, white peach aromatics. That's beyond the oak, of course, where you'll get that kind of grilled nut marzipan type of notes. But it has on the palate this, what I call an al dente, if you can imagine chewing on a piece of spaghetti, you get that kind of effect on the palate. But it's also, you've got that volume of fruit that goes with it, very much like Meursault. And I find that really interesting, how this vine stock material, its origins are actually steeped in Meursault, and how there are similarities in terms of its kind of volume on the palate. And then the other side of it, it's the indelible acid cut that carries the fruit across the palate. And you've actually got a wine that's 10 years old, or over 10 years old. And, you know, Australian Chardonnays for a long time were not well renowned for being, you know, age-worthy types of wine. And Leeuwin Estate were really the ones that really kind of cracked it in terms of longevity. And they made their name with the 1987 Art Series Chardonnay, and they have never looked back. Between Leeuwin Estate and Gioconda in Victoria, they are the two greatest producers of Chardonnay. in the country. That's what most Australian collectors believe. Also, the
Well,
other.
I'm really happy that you picked a 10-year-old, because you're right. I think that could be something that surprises a lot of people, is
Yeah.
just how young and fresh. And also the other word that you picked just on the tasting sheet, which I find so true with so many great Australian whites, is the clarity and the vividness of the fruit that they have. That is not what people might necessarily consider that they're going to find, but the great Rieslings in Australia, they just have such definition and clarity. So I really like that you picked those two words.
Yeah, well, that's really good that you say, because Australia's gone through a real revolution in winemaking, and I think it's, I'm a bit biased because I'm Australian, but it's really making some of the greatest Chardonnays in the world, in my view, and very good value ones compared to wines from elsewhere. And very much kind of inspired by a lot of kind of Burgundian winemakers like Costerie and all of that kind of stuff, and then they're just finding their own way. But what I really like about Leeuwin Estate particularly is that it's run its own course. The style is Leeuwin Estate. It's never really changed particularly, and it's always had a reputation for longevity. When I was a wine auctioneer, and we'd had people bringing in their old bottles of Chardonnay, would reject them. There were only a few names that we would actually even allow during my day, actually as aged wine coming onto the market. And Leeuwin was one of them.
Very interesting. But you could trust these ones.